You've been hearing that high-pitched ringing in your ears again, sometimes soft, sometimes sharp, but always there in the background. You think it's just age or maybe a side effect of life. But what if I told you there are 3 everyday foods secretly making that noise worse, and 3 powerful ones your brain is begging you to eat instead? It starts quietly, just a subtle buzz, maybe a hum. You brush it off thinking it'll go away. But it doesn't. You notice it more at night when the house is quiet. You notice it after a stressful day, or after a heavy meal, or after that glass of wine you thought you earned. Tinnitus isn't just a nuisance, it's your body's warning system. And if you're over 50, you need to understand what you eat may be either healing your brain or turning up the volume inside your head. It's that serious. Let's get straight to the problem. There are certain foods that inflame your nervous system, spike your blood pressure, and disturb the delicate inner workings of your ear and auditory nerves. And you're probably eating them regularly without realizing the damage they cause. These aren't exotic ingredients. They're on your shelf, they're in your fridge, they're what you reach for when you're tired, busy, or craving comfort. But they may be the very reason the ringing in your ears won't stop. The first food you must beware of is processed sugar. It's in your breakfast cereal, your snack bars, your evening dessert. Sugar spikes your blood glucose, inflames your nerves, and disrupts circulation, especially in the tiny blood vessels that feed your inner ear. And when those vessels constrict or get inflamed, your auditory system loses the balance it needs to function. That ringing you hear, it's not random. It's the echo of inflammation. It's your nerves misfiring because they're irritated and underfueled. If you've noticed that your tinnitus gets louder after a sweet treat or a carb-heavy meal, that's not coincidence, it's a clue. A clue that sugar may be sabotaging your silence. The second food you need to reconsider is sodium, especially in the form of processed salt found in chips, canned soups, lunch meats, and frozen meals. Sodium raises blood pressure. It pulls water into your bloodstream, strains your vessels, and increases the pressure inside your ears. That pressure doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it disrupts the fluid balance in your cochlea, the spiral-shaped organ that helps you hear clearly. When the pressure rises, the signals get scrambled. And the result, that sharp, constant, high-pitched sound that follows you like a shadow. The worst part, you may not even taste the salt. It's hidden, buried in healthy-looking meals and low-fat snacks, and it's keeping your nervous system agitated and off balance day after day. The third food that quietly turns up the volume on your tinnitus is caffeine. Now, don't panic. A cup of coffee isn't the enemy. But if you're drinking coffee to chase energy, or relying on soda or energy drinks, or sipping black tea all day to stay alert, you may be overstimulating your auditory system. Caffeine speeds up your nervous system. It increases cortisol, it tightens blood vessels, and it amplifies the very neural circuits that contribute to tinnitus. Have you ever noticed that on jittery, wired days, the ringing seems louder? That's not just your mood. That's a real biochemical response. Caffeine in high amounts makes your nervous system hypersensitive to sound, including the phantom sounds created by your own brain. You don't have to give it up entirely, but you do need to become conscious of how much is too much for your ears, for your peace, for your sleep. So now that you know the 3 most common dietary enemies, sugar, sodium, and excess caffeine, you might be wondering, what should I eat instead? What can actually calm my nervous system, support my auditory health, and maybe even help me reclaim some of the peace I've lost? That's what we'll get into next, because there are foods that don't just reduce inflammation, they support nerve function, boost circulation, and give your brain the nutrients it needs to fight back against tinnitus. And the best part, they're natural, affordable, and probably already in your kitchen. You just need to know how to use them. So now that you've cleared your plate of the biggest dietary offenders, sugar, sodium, and caffeine, you're ready to start feeding your brain and nervous system with what it actually needs: calming circulation, boosting nerve-protecting foods. Because here's the truth they don't tell you: tinnitus doesn't just happen. It builds slowly, quietly over time, layer by layer of stress, inflammation, and nutritional neglect. And the foods you eat each day can either accelerate that process or reverse it. Let's begin with the first food you must eat if you want to fight back: leafy greens, especially spinach, kale, and Swiss chard. These aren't just healthy, they're medicinal. They're loaded with magnesium, a mineral most older adults are dangerously low in. And what does magnesium do? It calms your nervous system. It relaxes the tiny muscles in your blood vessels. It improves circulation to your brain and inner ear. And most importantly, it helps regulate electrical signaling between nerve cells. That ringing in your ears, it's not just sound, it's misfiring nerves. And magnesium helps restore balance to those nerves. Even more powerful, these greens are rich in folate and antioxidants, which help reduce oxidative stress in the brain. Think of it this way: if your auditory system is like a high-performance engine, leafy greens are the oil that keeps it from burning out. Now let's move to the second food you need, and this one might surprise you: wild-caught fatty fish, like salmon mackerel and sardines. These fish are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which are known for reducing inflammation, improving blood vessel flexibility, and supporting brain function. But what you may not know is that your cochlea, the hearing organ in your inner ear, is highly sensitive to blood flow. When circulation slows, the tissues stiffen, the nerve endings misfire, and your brain fills in the gaps with noise. That's tinnitus. Omega-3s help keep your vascular system supple and smooth, ensuring your auditory system gets the oxygen and nutrients it needs to stay balanced. They also improve cognitive clarity because tinnitus isn't just about hearing. It's about how your brain processes what it hears. So if you want to quiet the noise, you've got to feed the brain that interprets it. The third food you need daily is one you might already love, but haven't fully appreciated: pumpkin seeds. Small, crunchy, and often overlooked, these tiny powerhouses are packed with zinc, a mineral that directly supports your inner ear's health. In fact, studies show that zinc supplementation can reduce the severity of tinnitus in people who are deficient. Why? Because zinc helps maintain the health of the cochlear hair cells, the delicate sensors that convert sound waves into electrical signals. When those cells weaken or die off, your brain starts inventing sound to fill the silence. That's why tinnitus often worsens as hearing fades. But zinc-rich foods like pumpkin seeds help protect those cells. Even better, pumpkin seeds also contain magnesium and tryptophan, which calm the nervous system and support better sleep. And as you now know, poor sleep is a major trigger for worsening tinnitus. So now you've got your healing toolkit: magnesium-packed greens, omega-3 rich fish, and zinc-loaded pumpkin seeds. But this isn't just about adding foods, it's about building habits. Because one healthy meal won't quiet years of inflammation. You need consistency, you need rhythm, you need a new relationship with food, one that sees each bite not as fuel, but as medicine. You may be wondering, how soon will I notice a change? How fast can these foods really work? The answer is, it depends. Some people notice improvement in a few weeks. For others, it takes months. But the point isn't perfection. The point is direction. Every time you swap sugar for greens, sodium for seeds, caffeine for herbal tea, you send your brain a message: I'm listening now. And that message changes your biology. It changes your stress response. It changes the way your brain prioritizes sound. And let's be clear, this isn't just about your ears. This is about your life. Because tinnitus doesn't just live in your hearing. It affects your relationships, your confidence, your sleep, your joy. That high-pitched hum might seem small, but when it follows you into every conversation, every moment of quiet, every second of solitude, it can feel enormous. That's why food matters. Not because it's a magic cure, but because it gives you control. And for many people with tinnitus, control is what's been missing. And here's the bigger truth: what calms your ears also calms your heart, your brain, and your entire nervous system. When you eat to reduce inflammation, support nerve health, and restore balance, you're not just fighting tinnitus. You're fighting anxiety. You're fighting memory loss. You're fighting that creeping sense that you're fading into a version of yourself that can't keep up. Food is your first medicine, but only if you take it seriously. You've already removed the 3 most harmful foods. Now you've added 3 healing ones. But your journey doesn't stop here. There's still more to learn, more to apply, and more to feel. Because tinnitus isn't just about sound, it's about the silence you're trying to get back. And that silence isn't gone forever. It's waiting. On the other side of every wise choice you make, starting with what's on your plate. By now you've taken real steps. You've started looking at your plate not with habit, but with awareness. You've removed the everyday trigger sugar that stirs up nerve inflammation salt, that jacks up inner ear pressure caffeine, that wires your nervous system. And you've begun introducing healing magnesium-rich leafy greens, omega-packed fish, zinc-heavy pumpkin seeds. But tinnitus doesn't just respond to what you eat. It responds to how you eat, how you live, how you recover from stress, how you sleep, how you handle the quiet moments when the ringing feels the loudest. Because here's a truth you may not want to hear but need to: tinnitus thrives in imbalance. Not just nutritional imbalance, but hormonal imbalance, emotional imbalance, and lifestyle imbalance. And if you're only treating one layer, the ringing will keep finding its way back. So let's talk about timing. Your ears, your brain, your nervous system, none of them exist in isolation, and none of them operate well on chaos. If your meal schedule is erratic, your sleep is unpredictable, and your stress fluctuates like a roller coaster, your nervous system is constantly on edge. And that tension creates the perfect environment for tinnitus to scream louder. This is why meal rhythm matters just as much as meal content. Your body likes predictability. It likes knowing when it will be nourished. It likes rhythm. Eat at the same times daily. Stop skipping breakfast. Stop snacking mindlessly at midnight. Feed your brain when it expects to be fed. That alone begins to soften the static. Next, hydration. You've heard it 1,000 times: drink more water. But what no one told you is that even mild dehydration can change the pressure inside your inner ear. That inner ear, that cochlear chamber, is filled with fluid. And when your body's low on water, it starts pulling fluid from places it shouldn't. The result: disrupted inner ear function and more ringing. You might think you're drinking enough because you sip coffee or tea all day, but caffeine is a diuretic. It pulls water out. Real hydration comes from water, mineral-rich broths, and water-dense foods like cucumbers and watermelon. If your urine is dark, your hearing might already be stressed. And here's something even deeper: gut health. You may not realize it, but the gut and the brain are in constant communication through what's called the gut-brain axis. And when your gut is inflamed due to processed food, antibiotics, alcohol, or chronic stress, it sends inflammatory signals straight to your nervous system. That includes the part of your brain interpreting sound. Many tinnitus sufferers have digestive issues they've never connected: bloating, constipation, reflux, IBS. If your gut is unhappy, your brain is inflamed. And if your brain is inflamed, your ears will not be silent. So what do? Support your gut like you support your ears. Eat fermented foods: sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, unsweetened yogurt. Load your diet with fiber from fruits, vegetables, legumes. Cut down on ultra-processed snacks that feed bad bacteria. Because the more balanced your gut microbiome, the calmer your brain becomes. And a calm brain does not scream in your ears. Let's not forget blood sugar. Most people over 50 have some degree of insulin resistance, especially if you've carried extra weight, skipped meals, or eaten lots of sugar over the years. And unstable blood sugar doesn't just make you tired or cranky. It disrupts your inner ear's blood supply. If your glucose is spiking and crashing, your brain goes into defense mode. And part of that response includes increased tinnitus sensitivity. That's why keeping your blood sugar stable with protein at every meal, healthy fats like avocado or nuts, and complex carbs like oats or quinoa actually calms the auditory centers of the brain. And what about supplements? Should you take magnesium, zinc, B complex, or ginkgo biloba? Maybe, but only after your food foundation is solid. Supplements can't fix a diet that's inflaming you 3 times a day. They can't override soda-processed meat or late-night caffeine. But once your meals are clean and consistent, targeted supplements can help. Magnesium glycinate is calming. Zinc picolinate supports nerve repair. Ginkgo may help improve blood flow in some cases, but they work best in a body that's already being fed properly. Pills without real food are like watering a garden full of weeds. It might help a little, but not in the way you need. And we can't skip sleep. Tinnitus spikes at night for many people. Why? Because your nervous system never shuts off. If you've trained your brain to live in constant alert, scrolling until midnight, watching tense shows, worrying about things out of your control, your brain stays hyperactive. And a hyperactive brain notices every sound, including the ones it makes up. Start honoring your bedtime. Dim the lights an hour before sleep. Avoid sugar and caffeine in the afternoon. Use background white or pink noise, not to cover the ringing, but to calm the part of your brain that obsesses over it. The quieter your internal world, the easier it is to ignore the noise that isn't real. Finally, and maybe most importantly, your mindset. You must stop believing that tinnitus owns you, because the moment you start saying, "I can't escape this," or "this will never get better," you hand over your power. You become a victim of the sound, but the sound has no power unless you give it meaning. Shift the way you speak. Shift the way you think. Instead of saying, "The ringing is back," try, "My body is asking me to pay attention." Instead of fearing silence, embrace it as a place of listening. The people who learn to live above their tinnitus aren't the ones who get lucky. They're the ones who retrain their brains, reclaim their plates, and rewrite the story. You are not powerless. You are not broken. You are not destined to suffer every time the room gets quiet. You are a living learning system, and everything you do, from the food you eat to the way you breathe, is either inviting peace or inviting noise. So what will you choose today? This is where it all comes together, not in the silence, but in the choices you make before the silence arrives. Because, let's be honest, you didn't come this far just to manage your tinnitus. You came here because you wanted control back, not just over your hearing, but over your mornings, your peace, your ability to sit alone in a room and not feel like something's broken inside your head. And now you know the food you eat is part of that control. Not a footnote, not an optional strategy, a pillar. A daily opportunity to calm your nervous system and give your auditory system the nutrients it's been starving for. You've learned the worst triggers: processed sugar that fuels nerve inflammation, sodium that spikes ear pressure, caffeine that hypercharges your already overloaded brain. You've also discovered your allies: leafy greens with magnesium that rewires calm fatty fish, with omega-3s that restore flow to your inner ear, and pumpkin seeds rich in zinc that guard your hearing cells like armor. But this is about more than food. It's about rhythm, hydration, gut healing, sleep mindset. It's about teaching your brain that the world is no longer a threat and that it doesn't have to scream anymore just to get your attention. Because that's what tinnitus is in the end: your nervous system trying to be heard. It's the echo of years you spent pushing through without rest, skipping meals, silencing stress, ignoring symptoms. The ringing isn't random. It's your body finally speaking up. And the more you listen, not with panic, but with curiosity, the more it softens. The less it controls you, the less it becomes your identity. Let's go even deeper. Some days the ringing will return louder. Not because you did something wrong, but because healing isn't linear. Maybe you slept poorly. Maybe you got stressed. Maybe you forgot to eat on time, or drank too much coffee, or skipped your greens. That's okay. That's not failure, it's feedback. It's your body whispering, "Try again tomorrow." And you will, because now you know. Now you see the connection. And if you're wondering whether it's too late, if you've already had tinnitus for months, even years, the answer is no. It's never too late. Your brain is plastic, your nerves are adaptable, your cells are listening, even now, especially now. When you start treating your body with consistency instead of confusion, with nourishment instead of noise, with calm instead of chaos, your system begins to shift. And so does the sound. So here's your challenge: not just to avoid those 3 foods, not just to eat the healing ones, but to build a life where every choice becomes a message to your nervous system. You're safe now. That means meal timing. That means moving your body. That means breathing deeper. That means turning down the stimulation and turning up the rhythm. Every choice you make can lower the volume or raise it. You're not just feeding your body, you're feeding your ears, your nerves, your peace. And if you're still thinking, "But I need more silence," remember this. Silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the absence of panic about sound. When your body feels steady, the noise fades, not always entirely, but enough to give you your life back. That's the real victory, not eliminating tinnitus, but eliminating the grip it had on your days, your nights, your emotions. So start today. Clean your fridge, prepare your meals, hydrate like it's medicine, sleep like it's sacred, and above all, speak differently about yourself, about your body, about your healing. You are not a broken system. You are a recovering one. One that now has the tools to turn noise into quiet chaos, into calm and sound, into something you can live with again. And when the ringing starts again, because sometimes it will, don't fear it. Don't fight it. Breathe through it. Feed your system. Calm your mind. And remind yourself, this sound is not stronger than me.